Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we're going to do a character guide on Seymour. So this is Seymour with his FRBT upgrades. Now, in this video, I don't actually have his FRBT, but I will definitely talk about them. But I am going to try to make Seymour look as good as he can with kind of the build I have. He's got the full build up to LD, but I do have him with a maxed out Ultima weapon, so I think for his regular kit, his damage should be pretty comparable to what a maxed out one, because the FR itself doesn't actually increase his damage unless that's the best weapon you have equipped, but I have the Ultima weapon equipped, which is going to do out better damage. And then the burst, we won't have his burst effect, but I'll have other characters' effects up that'll make him look good, right? So a few things that we'll look at here, but I think we should be able to see potentially what his damage can look like. So we're going to go ahead in this video, we're going to look at his calls, we're going to look at his artifacts, we're going to look at his spheres. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Seymour, he's basically a magic damage dealer, but his whole gimmick is that he gets stronger as the enemy gets weaker. So the way his kit works is, if the enemies are above 80%, he doesn't actually look that good. Under 80%, he looks pretty decent, and then if the enemies get under 50%, he's like a god. Like, he's really, really good, right? So we'll talk about that as I go through why maybe you may or may not like this, or why I maybe don't like it, and ways you would play this character or play around that effect, right? So first, let's go ahead and we're going to go and look at his calls. His LD call is super good, but his 15 call isn't like anything crazy, right? So Lance of Atrophy, this basically just puts some generic debuffs. So an attack down, defense down, max brave down, nothing that crazy, right? The LD, however, is actually quite good. This LD call 1 is it removes enemy buffs, which is a very powerful effect. So it's got Dispel, and it does a 2-turn enemy delay, and it puts all the generic debuffs I just listed, and then also a special debuff called Rest in Peace, which is going to be an additional attack down, brave and HP damage taken up, basically, and you get more, like that last part gets better based on how low the enemy's HP is. But it's a very good call, right? So definitely the LD call is decent. It's one that I don't actually use much myself, but I do think I could definitely see how people would get some use out of that, right? So let's go ahead and look at Seymour himself here. So my Seymour is basically everything maxed out through the LD. So once again, no BT, no FR, but I do have the max Ultima weapon. I do have the base LD armor, and then I do have him Force Enhanced 10. So there definitely are things I could be improving on my Seymour, but I think we'll still get a pretty good look at him here, right? So let's go ahead and look at his artifacts. Now his artifacts, I actually haven't touched his artifacts. You can see I still have like non-red artifacts. So definitely like during this event, I will get him proper artifacts. You pretty much want attack 108, max brave 330, which I don't have. This is the closest I have to that. But that's how long it's been since I've actually like farmed Seymour, was before Mogpass existed. Because since Mogpass, I've had it every single month, and I've always had access to the orange passive. So yeah, so attack 108, max brave 330. He's an older character, just really basic artifact passive there. And then on to the spheres. I actually got pretty good spheres on him. So the way Seymour works is he doesn't do elemental damage, but he does have access to weakness damage, because the way his kit works is if you attack a debuffed enemy, he just gets weakness damage. So something like Rydia in the A slot can work really well, where you're going to get brave damage and attack for weakness damage, right? I think magic attack spheres could work. So any of just those like big magic attack up ones, like Aerith I think has a pretty good magic attack up. So if you want to give him brave damage attack or magic attack up, I think any of those are fine. He's a damage dealer, so you want to focus on the offensive stats. Now he's mainly a debuffer as well, so he's got 2 E slots here. So just some examples, like his own E sphere is actually very good. So when inflicting a debuff, you raise your own attack. So yes, Seymour's own is very good here. I think Kefka is good. It's another debuff sphere, and you get a really big magic attack up on that. So I think Kefka and then Seymour's own are very good. Yuffie, Emperor, these are all really good ones. You just want to focus on attack. And once again, debuffing is very easy for him to trigger, because that's what he's built on. So that's pretty much the way you want to build him. Very offensive character, right? So let's go ahead and hop into the showcase. So I'm going to run Luna Freya, and I am going to run Lilith here. And I actually am going to do a Force Time, because I kind of want to see how good his damage is in a Force Time. And I think this can also showcase how you don't have to have like your DPS character, you don't have to have their Force for them to be good. I'm going to say I'm going to use Lilith and then try to make Seymour work with Lilith, right? So I am going to bring in like a friend selfie here, I think, just to give me some launch damage as well. And, you know, between Seymour and Lilith, we're going to get enough debuffs to make her Force Time look good. And we've got a couple of debuffs and calls, so I think we're going to be good here. So let's go ahead and hop in. and we will kind of talk about Seymour's kit. So once again, Seymour's kit is going to kind of change as the enemies get weaker, so just note that he's going to look very unimpressive at first, and that's actually the part I don't like about Seymour, right? So just the first bit of advice that I would give to people is the way you play him is it's not that traditional mentality that like you speed into a force time, try to use Seymour and gun through it. Seymour is meant for more like if you're going to play out the fight a little bit longer, you kind of want to use his force time and his FR like in the second half of the fight. Preferably when the enemies are below 50%, although he's still very good when they're below 80, and he very quickly, like during a BT force time, can put them below 50% during it. So you can like start it off in the 80% threshold, or even before that, and you're going to drain the enemies down fairly quickly, and just know as the enemies get drained. But a strategy a lot of people use with Seymour is in the beginning of the fight when he's not that strong, people will actually sub him out for the friend unit, maybe go through a force time with other characters, get the enemies a little bit lower, and then have Seymour hop back in. So that's probably like one of the better ways to play him, because then you're just not using him when he's at his weakest. He comes in when he's stronger, right? But let's go ahead here. Luna Freya will do a quick charge. And then I am going to go ahead and dump a quick prayer on Seymour so we can get a few turns on him right away. So let's go ahead and do that. Perfect. And then we will go ahead and we will just, yeah, sure, let's drop the BT effect here. Yeah, let's just do that. We'll just drop the BT effect right away. And then we'll get a couple attacks with Seymour. We'll kind of just show off like each part of his kit. And then I want to get into like Lilith's force, and we're going to try to really blow some damage down and see how these enemies are looking. Now keep in mind, if there are multiple enemies, basically the HP threshold, only one enemy has to be within that. So if there's 3 enemies and 2 of them are at 100% and one's at 79, you'll get the 80% threshold bonus. If one of them's below 50% but the rest are above that, you'll still get the good stuff for being 50% or lower, right? Alright, so let's start with Seymour here with just a couple of attacks. So we'll start with Chain Spell. So basically, it's just a really basic attack, so let's just do it. It's super basic, and it's going to be really weak right here. Yeah, 377k for like a main DPS, that's terrible, right? So what it does is it does give him a max brave up, and it puts an eye brave down on the enemy. So we get a buff and a debuff. So the reason why that looks so bad is once the enemy's below 80%, it's actually going to trigger twice. So we'd essentially be doubling that, right? And then what happens is below 50%, he gets another follow-up called Total Annihilation. So basically, he would get that doubled plus Total Annihilation, and then you'll see the damage will start to rack up. Not to mention, like, other parts of his kit get improved, right? So that's Chain Spell. Let's look at Lance of Atrophy next. And we'll look at these later on when they're stronger, right? So you can see that's his more AoE attack. So that's 400k AoE. So it is full HP damage. Now what happens with the Lance of Atrophy is if the enemies are under 80%, you know, Chain Spell trigger twice. What Lance of Atrophy will do is after Lance of Atrophy will then trigger a Chain Spell. So you get more damage on top of it. This gives him a buff called Master of Yvonne, or Maester of Yvonne. And it's just an attack and max brave up for Seymour. And then it puts an attack down, defense down, max brave down on the enemies. So you see the enemies are already loaded up with like a bunch of debuffs, right? Actually, sure, I'll put a Raijin debuff on too, just because I can. Just to make sure no shenanigans happen here. Okay. And then we can show you set Sap Burst. So this does put like a Sap debuff down on the enemies if they don't have one already. Which is somewhat decent. And then it just makes you do more damage. It gives you like Brave damage up, and then more Brave damage, especially against debuffed enemies. So really, you want enemies to be debuffed. So he does synergize very well with Lilith. And he's kind of got the same thing going as Lilith, where he does a bunch of debuffs. He actually can drop down, what, 6 debuffs? But only one is framed, so he's not cloggy. So you can run him and Lilith together, as long as you don't really care about those generic ones kind of rewriting each other or overlapping each other. You just know you're going to have 8 debuffs down on the enemies, right? Let's go ahead and do Cross Cleave, which is the LD. So let's pop this here. Once again, not going to be nearly as strong right now. 800k AoE is pretty decent, though, considering the enemies are still at the highest threshold, right? So Cross Cleave, the cool thing about it is it does remove any enemy buffs, and that also synergizes well with Lilith, because if an enemy puts a frame buff on, then you can't like overwrite it, so you need to clean it off first, and that really helps you make sure you got full 8 debuffs down, right? It does do a 2-turn delay, and once again, this is why the LD call is so good, is you're getting the Dispel with the 2-turn delay. And then if they were below 80%, it would have done a Chain Spell afterwards, right? So basically, like, as you get them lower, you're going to get like a bunch of follow-ups, like pretty much guaranteed. Now, he gets a buff called Readying to Annihilate, which basically is Brave damage up, Brave Steel up, and then you get, and that's on weakness damage, and then HP damage and overflow up. So, very good, right? Now, Readying to Annihilate will change to Ready to Annihilate, and this will happen after that 50% threshold, and this is what triggers that extra follow-up called Total Annihilation, right? So, he gets all of the effects of Readying to Annihilate, but basically just adds that follow-up at the end. So, we'll see that when they get below 50%. Let's go ahead with Lilith here. And sure, let's go ahead and put Kate Sith Call down. We're just going to do all kinds of shenanigans. We're just going to load them up with like a million debuffs. Put some extra framed ones down. All that fun stuff. Let's go ahead and Sensual Dance here. We'll Force Charge a little bit with the Lilith. Actually, what I can do is I might get Selfie in here too. Let's just get Selfie in and let's wall it. Because I'm pretty much to the point where I kind of want to do a Force Time right now and show that off. What I'll do too is I will talk about his force and his burst effects as well. So let me just go ahead and continue. Actually, I'll aura. So here's the thing. Seymour's EX is quite powerful, which we haven't shown that yet. So using aura here is nice because that's an EX charging move. So pairing him with like EX chargers can be really good because his, like I said, his EX is very good. So let's go ahead and wall out. Now the bad part about Seymour here is I don't have his burst, so I can't like go through a burst phase. But I can put Quick Prayer on him. Oh, actually his Quick Prayer, let's see, what's he at? He's at 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't have room for Quick Prayer right now because I started doing the selfie shenanigans. I should have done the selfie shenanigans when he already had Quick Prayer on. So it's fine. We'll just go through whatever happens. We'll just have to take our turn slow if we need to. Alright, so we're back to Lilith. Let's go ahead and Sensual Dance again. Sure. And then what I'll do is let me just take a couple of normal turns. So let's go ahead and sure, let's LD here. Yeah, it's a bummer I kind of loaded up with too many buffs, and they are all framed. So he would have to get rid of... What buff does he have that has 3 turns? Let me double check here. Oh, he's got an aura buff. Okay. So, I don't know. Maybe I can free turn and just get rid of that here. Let's just take another turn here with you know, Luna Freya. And then what we'll do is Seymour. We'll just pop a free turn thing here. Try to lower his buff counts. Let's do a call. Lowers buff counts. Okay, oh, actually, the call didn't lower his buff counts. Okay, so we'll just take a couple more turns here. But we'll kind of see the attacks. Once again, the enemies are still pretty high. So that's the thing with Shinryu. This is why I don't like Seymour's, because if you're not doing force times or whatever, it does take a while to get 20% off because the enemies typically have a lot of HP, right? So you kind of want to go through a force right away with somebody else and then bring them in. But we're going to try force right away with just Seymour here. What we'll do here is we've pretty much shown everything. So sure, let's go ahead and just pop Lance here and we'll just kind of see the damage as we go through. Okay. And then we'll go one more turn with Seymour to let that buff fall off. And then I can put Quick Prayer on him. So I really want him to have Quick Prayer, right? Lilith set free move. Let's boost all. That's fine. We shall take it. But the enemies are definitely like debuffed up, right? Like we're good there. I do have the ability to use the force right now, but I don't want to do it yet. And this will give us an opportunity to kind of weaken the enemies a little bit too. Luna Freya, let's Diamond Dust. And then what I'll do is I want a Heavy Prayer as well, but I'm not going to have room. I need 2 buff slots. And unfortunately, I took up way too many doing those walls, which is fine. Okay, so let's go ahead. All right, we do have the EX we can show off, so that's good. So let's go ahead and pop the EX and kind of show that off. And that should give him a buff slot open after this. So let's go ahead and pop that. I'm just curious on the damage here. Okay, so 600k AoE, which once again, you might think that's not crazy, but the enemies aren't weak enough yet, right? So let's talk about the EX. So it does do that big AoE attack. Now it gets stronger if the enemies are below 80. So that was a weaker version of it. And then if it's below 50, it does an extra Brave gain, an extra hits, and he gets a free ability use on the next turn. And then it does give him a buff called Seymour's Riposte, which I believe I already had. But it gives him attack up, max Brave up, and then Overflow Stolen up. So very, very good buff right there, right? So, all right, Lilith set here. Let's go ahead and we'll just EX. And then with Luna Freya, we will make sure we get that quick... Wow, Actually, I should have done Lilith first, because doing Quickness Prayer right now is pointless. So I got to do another round. Because I want him to have Quickness Prayer during the Force time. So what we're going to do is, because I could give him Heavy Prayer, but then, yeah, we wouldn't have room for the other one. So we'll just do an attack. Sorry, one more cycle through. And then I want to get into Force time and then get these enemies below 80% and then kind of see what we can do from there, right? Okay, now they're starting to drop debuffs off because I'm giving them too many turns. So let's go ahead and, sure, we'll just pop this. Okay, and that'll refresh some debuffs, so now we're good. Alright, so now Lilith will just go into FR right away. Alright, so sure, we'll go into FR. And once again, this is very easy. We're just doing crit damage and the enemies are full debuffed. We're getting 70%, right? Alright, so let's pop this. Now once again, we're going to see Seymour's damage start to skyrocket as we weaken the enemies. They're at 85% right now. Okay, so we do need to Quick Prayer here. So we are going to have to burn a turn, unfortunately. So we're going to Quick Prayer Seymour. I just want him to have a bunch in a row. There we go. Perfect. Alright, and then Luna Freya, let's go ahead and... I'm actually here's what I'm going to do. Because I want to get the enemies a little bit weaker before we go into Seymour. I think I'm actually going to pop LD. And then give Luna Freya a few turns here. That's if she has room for Quickness Prayer, which I think she does. Okay. This will give us a few turns, and we're going to be doing 70%, right? So now we can naturally get the enemies below the thresholds. And then we can just kind of let Seymour do a little bit more damage and really push the Force gauge down, right? So let's just see how this kind of looks and how much Seymour can kind of start to melt here. I'm kind of curious on that myself. But we're going to very quickly get them below 80%, and then Seymour hopefully will get them quickly below 50%, right? Let's just keep doing this. We'll just keep doing the 70%. Yeah, we're just pushing that up. So yeah, now they're below 80%. So now we can kind of start to cook a little bit with Seymour. Yeah, let's just do another one. Just keep popping these. Okay, and yeah, doing 2 mil. I mean, that's decent enough damage right now, right? And then we should get the last 4 turns with Seymour, and then we can see his damage. That's really my goal here, what I want to see. So let's do this. Now the enemies are going to get to take a turn. Hopefully they don't do anything too crazy to us here. Okay, they're not targeting Seymour, so that's good. Yeah, I worried about them trying to paralyze, right? That's what I was worried about. But they're hitting Lilith, so we're good. Alright, so now Seymour's up. And I think the Raijin debuff might have still been active. Alright, so now we can look at a couple of these attacks more busted, right? So let's do Chain Spell. This should do double Chain Spell, so let's look at the damage here. And obviously it's at 500%. So yeah, we did 4 mil there at 500%. And then let's try the AoE. So we actually, and what you want to do kind of is burst one of them down as quick as you can. So I'll keep targeting the same enemy here. So let's go ahead and do Lance and look at that buffed. This is going to trigger a Chain Spell afterwards. There we go, another 4 mil. Yep, so hopefully this next hit, I've got a plan. I can use my summon if I need to. Ooh, let's pop the EX. Yeah, let's see. Well, I want to see the EX below 50%, but I don't know if popping the summon here is going to do enough damage to just put them below 50. Let's just pop... Actually, let's pop an LD. That should do really big damage. Let's pop an LD here, because I want to see the EX, like, kind of maxed out. Okay. So, yeah, and then we're triggering a Chain Spell after. And then here's Total Annihilation. So we went below 50%. So here's the thing. It can trigger mid-turn. And there, all of a sudden, we jumped up to, like, a 10 mil shot. Okay? So now we're like kind of in nuke mode, right? So let's go ahead and pop the summon for even more big damage. And then we're going to see what the EX looks like here. Okay. So we're going to attack the enemy that's at 43%. And let's hit the EX. And let's just see what kind of insane damage we get here. This is going to be pretty nutty. Yeah, look at all those dumps. And then he still has... Yeah. Look at all the follow-ups. This is crazy. And then Total Annihilation at the end of it? Dude, holy cow. Yeah, so that was basically a 10 mil AoE shot. So you can see, like, when they get below 50%, he really can nuke and do, like, some insane damage. It's just, I don't like the idea that he starts off so weak and he gets stronger as you go through. So, I mean, if you like this playstyle and you kind of want to spend longer times with fights and, like, whittle the enemies down and then like really nuke them at the end, then definitely summon for him. He's just not my type of character, but he does like insanity with all of the dumps and the follow-ups. And here's the thing. Let me talk about his force and his burst before we end the video. So I'll just kind of attack through here as we go through. But his force time, do not, even if you're going to max out Seymour, do not stress about the force. He does not need it. Completely unnecessary. You use him with other characters' force times, like, say, Lilith here. Basically, what his force does is it does dispel when you use it, which is cool, right? Puts some debuffs down, cool. Just generic ones. And then what it does is it does like increase the party's damage if the enemies have no buffs, right? Which is ideally what you want to do. But his HP conditions I do not like. So if you attack an unbuffed enemy 40%, that's great, easy to get. But then he gets 10% if they're below 80% and another 10% when they're below 50%. So to effectively use his force time, you have to use it when they're below 50%. And even at that, you're only getting 60%. So, one, it's super restrictive, and two, it's still like 60% isn't that great of a percent anymore. That feels like a percentage from a couple of months ago, right? Lilith, which is super free and easy, is getting 70%. So Seymour's FR is actually pretty bad. So really don't, even if you get it, I don't even recommend you use the resources to max it. Like, just let his FR sit there. If you're all in on Seymour, just equip his BT or equip the Ultima weapon and you're good to go. Now, his BT is actually pretty decent. So it's obviously going to do your really typical big BT attack here. We'll do another Lance of Atrophy here. Let's see what the normal damage looks like, actually. This is kind of good to see. Outside, see what he does outside of the force damage. Let me just see what this looks like. Okay, so it like did all of the attacks, but we didn't see the full effect of it. So I think that last one too, when it said 10 mil, I think it was more damage than that because they were doing it in different phases and it was recalculating. Because that was definitely more than like 700k. Like that had to be a lot better than that. But anyways, into his burst. Basically, his burst effect has a lot of buffs and like debuffs attached to it. So basically, what it has is as an enemy attack and defense down, it has an enemy speed down. It has an HP damage and overflow stolen up for the party, brave damage limit up, and HP damage and HP damage limit up, right? The other thing that happens is party attacks will remove an enemy buff. So basically it turns your whole party into dispellers. Now that effect only comes below 50%. And for all of the buffs and debuffs I've listed, they basically have tiers that get better as at the 83% threshold and then at the 50% threshold. So the thing I don't like about the BT effect, once again, it's like everything else in this kit, it's only at its best when they're below 50%. So you kind of want to wait to use his BT effect till later on. You kind of want to wait to use his force till later on. It's just kind of a weird kit. Now, I said this before in my Should You Pull video. Even though I don't like the way his kit is set up, I still like appreciate that DFFOO made him like that because it's a very different style of character, and I think that's good, that's refreshing. It's just not my style of character, but I would rather them do things like this that maybe, aren't the best to everybody, but I definitely could see this appealing to some players. And once again, it's unique, right? There's no other character like it, so I do like at least that they made Seymour fairly unique. Let's see what the LD looks like here at below 50%, while we're kind of at it here. So topped off with that, and then Total Annihilation. And what's the damage looking like here? Yeah, 800k and 700k. I mean, I feel like it was stronger than that, but maybe that's all it was. I don't know. I feel like it was calculating some of those separately, but the damage during force time, I think, looked pretty impressive. Once again, you max this guy out, use him below 50%. I think he's looking pretty good. He's not a character I recommend people summon for. We got Jack Garland coming. Here's the thing, too. Like, characters like Lilith, Tifa, Renoa, like, they're pretty much like hit buttons. They do their thing. You don't have to think very much. Seymour is definitely a character you have to think a little bit more about. So it depends on if you like that strategy, you like to play around with the kits a little bit more. It just depends on what type of player you are. So anyways, let me know what you think of Seymour, if you like him or not, if you pulled him. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.